What's up in War Eagle, everybody? It's your guy, Ike Jones. It is game day on the plains. It is Auburn. It is Mississippi State. It is Lob Town. Let's get straight to it. Y'all know how we do.
The Auburn Express.
You are now listening to the War Report Lob Town Podcast. With your boy Ike Jones.
Hopefully everybody is having a good Saturday. We are in here talking a little Auburn basketball as the Tigers are set to host the Mississippi State Bulldogs in Neville Arena. Everybody, welcome in. Let's get into it and start having this conversation, man. Auburn looking to avenge the loss earlier this season to Mississippi State on the road where Auburn shot not great. We'll talk about that first game here in just a minute, but hopefully you all are ready for some basketball today. Auburn coming off of a tough loss to Tennessee. I was at the game, of course, didn't get an opportunity to really give you guys a recap. Talked about it a little bit on the War Report's weekend tailgate, or the midweek report, I should say, that Thursday night that we had. But yeah, tough loss. Auburn now looking to try to stay in the top four, still in contention for the SEC regular season title, but going to need a lot of help. Got to go undefeated in these last couple of games. 3 more games left on the season, including today. And they need the guys in front of them to lose a couple of them, being Tennessee and Bama, who are going to face each other today. So let's get in here and talk about the head-to-head with this matchup. Auburn taking on Mississippi State. Of course, we've already done this once this season. Chris Jans brings the Mississippi State Bulldogs in, who are currently having a good season, right? They're not world beaters by any means, but they're having a very solid season, 19-9, 8-7 in the SEC. And I say they're not world beaters after, just saying that they beat Auburn earlier this year. In a really, it was an ugly rock fight of a game the first time. And, I expect Auburn to play a little bit better at home offensively, because that was really the story of the game the first time. But points per game, Auburn's better. Points against Auburn slightly better there. Field goal percentage, Auburn's a little bit better. Mississippi State a little better on the boards, and we're going to definitely talk about rebounds here in just a minute. Auburn higher in assists per game. Auburn higher in blocks per game. Mississippi State actually leading in steals per game. So it's going to be another defensive battle for Auburn in this one, against a team that has a very solid defense. The ESPN matchup predictor shows Auburn has an 86% chance to win this game. So good odds for Auburn to win at home versus Mississippi State. And you'll see why when you look at Mississippi State's road record. They have not done well on the road this season so far. So Auburn should be able to handle business here. But again, games are not played on paper. You have to go out there and actually win. And Auburn's looking to try to put a third consecutive good offensive performance out there. Something that they have not done really well is carry offensive momentum game to game. But coming back home after 2 good road offensive performances, you hope the Tigers can do that. The stat leaders for each team. Really, it's a 2-man show for Mississippi State with Tolu, Smith, and Matthews as far as stat leaders are concerned, and that's not to disrespect Josh Hubbard, who has been amazing for Mississippi State. But Tolu Smith is the difference maker for that team since he's been back. He has taken control of that Mississippi State offense as far as points per game. How he gets his points per game, is not the same way as Hubbard, who is more of an on-ball, put the ball in my hands, let me go score. He was amazing in that Kentucky game. Getting that team to almost go to overtime had it not been for some last-second heroics there by Reed Shepherd. For Auburn, of course, Janai Broome is the guy. He is points, rebounds, and blocks per game leader. Steals leader, K.D. Johnson still. Assist leader still, Trey Donaldson. When we look at this game, though, it's going to really come down to which team plays the better defense, I think. Stats aside, this Mississippi State team is looking to improve what they're trying to get as far as their resume to get into the postseason. They're trying to get a better seeding in the SEC tournament, so this is not a wash game for them. Auburn's still trying to do the same thing, get better seeding for the SEC tournament, and then subsequently better for the NCAA. So this is going to be a hotly contested battle inside of Neville Arena, and hopefully Auburn is ready and prepared for what Mississippi State's going to bring from a defensive standpoint. After having really, for all intents and purposes, had their way with Tennessee offensively after Tennessee came out very ferocious in the first part of that game defensively. Auburn, got their wits about them and came out and put 84 points on one of the best defenses in the country. Just didn't really have the defensive performance to shut down Dalton Connect. I'm looking to see how Auburn bounces back defensively in this game. Can they get back to shutting people down? Dalton Connect's a different beast of a person, but you're coming with a guy like Josh Hubbard again, who is a scoring menace. He's going to come in there and he's going to give you buckets. Can Auburn figure out from what they need to do defensively to shut down Hubbard? Again, Hubbard and Connect's not the same type of scorers, but Hubbard is adept at getting out there and getting to his spots and getting buckets. He did so in the first game versus Auburn. Here, let's look at the Vegas lines on this one, though. BetUS is, of course, our sponsor for all of our betting lines on here. Auburn is currently a 9.5-point spread. The money line has been all over the place this morning, so you got to catch that where you can. At the time of this recording, it was minus 450 for Auburn, plus 360 at Mississippi State. Team over-unders here, 78 for Auburn, 68.5 for Mississippi State, and the 146 is the game over-under. Again, Vegas lines brought to you by BetUS, where the game begins. Quick word from them, and let's get back into talking about this.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
So make sure you hit the link in our description for our link to BetUS so that you can get on board with what they've got going on. 125% sign-up bonus on the first 3 deposits. Can't beat that. Make sure you hit them up right there in the link in the description, and that will tell them the War Report sent you. All right, let's get back into this game. I said we were going to talk about the previous matchup, and let's do that right now. Mississippi State won that at Mississippi State, 64-58. Auburn only shot 33% in this game, just under 34% in this game, 25% from 3. That's just not going to get it done. That's a paltry offensive performance. They need to be better than that today on offense in order to win this game. The other big thing was the rebounds. I said we were going to come back in and talk about these rebounds. 14 offensive boards to just 6 for Auburn. 45-30 was the rebounding deficit in that game. And that really spelled the difference in the game. Mississippi State turned the ball over enough. They had 14 turnovers in that game. Auburn had 11 turnovers, but they won the turnover battle in the game. But when you look at, how poorly Mississippi State shot the basketball, only 23.8% from 3, 50% from the free throw line. Auburn still lost this game by 6 points. You're going to point to the fact that too many second chance opportunities for Mississippi State in this game, and you shot the ball like crap, right? 33% from the field. That's just not going to get it done on anybody's floor, no matter where you are. You can't come back and produce that kind of offensive output and hope to win the basketball game. So Mississippi State, really good defense, very physical team. Auburn's just going to need to shoot the basketball better in this game, point blank, period. And try to make sure that they're making it easy for themselves. Mississippi State, again, has not been great on the road, and we'll take a look at kind of the home versus road situation for them. We'll start over here on the offensive side for Mississippi State. On the season, we've talked about they've scored 75.4 points per game. On the road so far this year, that number drops to 72.5, so 72.4. So only 3 points less on the road than they are at home. But, if they are 3 points less than what they were at home in our game versus Auburn in that other game, then Auburn needs to just do 4 points better than they did last time, right? We can just do some quick math there and you get the win. But I think that Auburn is much more than 4 points better at home in this matchup if you can hold Mississippi State to what they're typically been doing on the road so far this season. From a field goal or from a free throw percentage, Mississippi State shooting 63% 42.2 points, percent from the free throw line. That's not a very good percentage. Again, they're not a great free throw shooting team. They didn't shoot free throws particularly well in the first matchup, only 50% in that game. From two is where they really are going to get it, right? They're going to be able to get the offensive boards and get the easy putbacks. They want to get out in transition and get some easy buckets that way. So incumbent for Auburn to limit Mississippi State's offense is to be better on the boards. That's something that you've seen a concentrated effort from this team really since that Mississippi State game. Actually, I'd say since the Florida game, they've been intent on we're going to go and put a body on somebody and make sure that we get to the boards. That's going to be the biggest thing in this game really for Auburn is being physical and keeping Mississippi State off of the glass, particularly off of the offensive glass. Secure your defensive glass. I think you win this basketball game. Well, secure the defensive glass and keep them out of their run game transition stuff. You win this basketball game. So that's the best thing to do. I mean, Mississippi State doesn't have a bunch of shooters. They've got Josh Hubbard and a bunch of, and maybe you can get a little bit into Shamar Moore. That's going to, I mean, it's going to be Shaquille Moore. I don't know why I want to call him man Shamar Moore. He's not the actor. Shaquille Moore can give you a little bit something from the outside, but that's pretty much it for this team as far as outside shooters that you have to worry about. And everybody else, you just need to make sure that they're not going to abuse you on the glass. Matthews had an amazing game last time versus Auburn as far as his ability to get out there and affect the game on both ends of the floor. You actually kept Tolu Smith under wraps for the most part in this game, so I don't expect that to happen again. I think Tolu Smith is going to have a better game, but overall, it's really going to be about in the crucial moments, can you stop Josh Hubbard from getting the big shots? Because that was the thing that Auburn was incapable of doing in this last game. Flip it over to the other side and you talk about Mississippi State's ability to stop other teams. They are not as good defensively on the road so far this season. They're giving up almost 66 points per game as opposed to the 68 or around 68 that they're doing on the season. So Auburn has the ability to come in and get some points against this Mississippi State team as they travel inside of Neville Arena. But you've got to do a much better job in a couple of areas, right? You've got to do better from three. Absolutely. Another 25, percent shooting game from three is not going to be a recipe for success for Auburn. Hopefully they can continue to shoot the basketball well. Shot a really ridiculous amount at 40-something%. I'm thinking like for 41-42% versus Tennessee. That's not something that you expect to duplicate, but you are at home. You just hope you don't get another Tennessee home performance from your outside shooting. But shoot what you normally do from outside, and you'll be fine if you're in the 30s. Again, this is a team, I've said plenty of times, if they're in the 30s in their percentage in shooting threes, they're going to be good. You don't really want to take more than about 25 or 26. You want to make about 35% of those. You'll be in a good place if you're Auburn offensively. The other thing that they have to do offensively is take care of the basketball. Not a ton of turnovers, only 11 for the totality of the game, but if you can keep Mississippi State again out of their run game and you can run a little bit, you turned the ball over 14 times, turned Mississippi State over 14 times in that last game. You need to be able to get out and get some transition buckets against them so that you're not working against that set defense. They do a much better job in their half-court defense. You want to make sure that you're forcing turnovers, getting out and getting into the run game. That's going to be a big thing for Auburn in this one is can they get points in transition? Going to be paying close attention to what the points off of turnovers are for Auburn, particularly fast break points for this team. Being able to get in there and get points before Mississippi State gets their defense set, going to be a big key to this game. So when you talk about offensively for Auburn, the matchups that you really want to be able to exploit in this game, it's not a favorable matchup for Auburn, but one you need to be able to do well is, again, Janai Broome. I think Mississippi State's going to trust Tolu Smith to be able to go one-on-one versus Janai Broome for the most part. You need to be able to take advantage of that and get Tolu Smith in some sort of foul trouble. They are going to try to, make sure that I think Mississippi State's going to play quite a bit of zone in this game to try to force Auburn into the outside shots and invite them to do that a little bit more and to be able to help a little bit more in the paint so they don't have to go one-on-one versus Janai Broome. So that's going to be incumbent upon guys like Chady Johnson, guys like Chad Baker-Mazar. Chad Baker-Mazar needs to have a bounce-back game. He played okay in the last game, but not up to the standard of what Auburn fans have come to expect from Chad. I think if you ask him, he would say he didn't have a very good game versus Tennessee. Chad needs to have a bounce back game. He needs to get that mid-range game working versus Mississippi State. This is going to be a team that's going to allow the mid-range shot to be there. They're just going to try to run you off the three and then try to get you into the paint. The mid-range game needs to be working for Chad Chaney. Jay Will playing an enormous game in the last one with 21 minutes. Needs to be able to get into his mid-range. I think Mississippi State's going to try to go zone for a good portion of this game to force the outside shot from Auburn. So Auburn needs to be able to exploit the middle of that zone as they get into it. And then I think it's going to be imperative for the guards for Auburn to have a better basketball game. Not that they had a bad game versus Tennessee, but when Auburn has played poorly, Mississippi State, Florida, Kentucky, you look at all of the games where in the SEC so far, in the 5 losses for Auburn in the SEC, it's come down to whether or not the guards have played well and whether or not Jalen Williams has had an efficient basketball game. Auburn's learned to win without Jay Will. Of course, on that Georgia game, they've learned to score, without Jay Will in the starting lineup. Can they figure out a way in this game to make it where Jay Will doesn't need to play 20-some minutes in order for you to be able to get the win in this one? And, I think they wanted to bring him along a little bit more slowly, but they felt like they needed the offensive firepower for him to come in versus Tennessee, and he did well. I think in this game is one. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not, number one, he starts. I think that Coach Pearl and company will want to bring him off the bench again to be able to not have to rely on him as much in minutes, try to get him back down sub 15 in minutes in this game. But how well is Auburn going to be able to score in this game if he's not in the lineup and they don't rotate him in consistently? That's going to be an interesting thing. Also going to be interesting to see how many minutes Chris Moore gets in this game. Against a team that you don't expect to score a lot, do you want to go with a more defensive lineup to be able to get the hustle boards and points that you need from a guy like Chris Moore in a game where you're expecting it to be a little bit more muddy? I think that's going to be an interesting thing to see what Coach Pearl and company do in regard to him, because his minutes have significantly decreased post Jay Will injury, which is, again, an interesting development considering you would expect his minutes to go up, but they've done the exact opposite. The workload has gone more in the direction of Chaney Johnson and Leor Berman to supplement the minutes for Jay Will, and then Jay Will coming back in the Tennessee game. Chris Moore didn't play at all. So going to be interesting to see what happens with Chris Moore in this game, considering the type of game that you expect to get out of a Mississippi State team and the way that you're going to want to defend that team. Overall, Auburn looks good in this one, but it's really going to come down to which Auburn offense shows up, in my opinion. What Auburn offense is going to show up in this game has been a good Auburn offense inside of Neville Arena, sans Kentucky. You need the Auburn offense that you typically get, and you're going to be able to come away with the victory in this game to keep pace in the SEC. But what I want to hear from you guys is what you think about this matchup. Give me your score predictions. How many points do you think that Auburn is going to get in this game? How many points do you think Mississippi State's going to get? Drop those right down there in the comment section. Before you get out of here, please do me a favor and share this content with somebody so that they can come in and give us their opinions on the stuff too. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll be back at you with a post-game reaction for this one. But until then, and as always, War Eagle.